try this. We just started a new YouTube channel and we're going to throw up some content. We'll see what sticks.
Bros before bows.
Bros before bows. So I'm Ken, and this is my bro Josh. Anyway, so we got into this, well, we kind of got into this idea, and I'll explain a little bit about it a little bit later on, but a little bit introductions. Like I said, I'm Ken. I got into archery hunting a little bit from my little brother a couple years back. I want to say 3 years back. Decided to take my son deer hunting, and the majority of my deer hunting experience was pretty much with rifles. And when I got to the area that we live in now, talking around to certain people, they said, "Oh, well, the rifle hunt's pretty crowded. You'd probably be better off doing archery hunt." So my son liked archery. We decided to get ourselves a couple bows, start shooting, and go archery hunting for mule deer out here. So that was kind of a rough process, and there were a couple of things that happened during that process that kind of inspired what we're doing now, kind of putting out content. Me and Josh were a couple regular guys. We have full-time jobs, limited budgets, and we kind of test our way through different things. And we've learned a few things along the way that maybe if we can impart that kind of knowledge, it might help somebody else out there figure things out a little bit quicker, kind of maybe shorten that learning curve and help people find gear that they like, gear that works, that maybe doesn't cost $1 million. So that's pretty much who I am. I'll let Josh kind of say who it is.
So I actually got into archery hunting probably 2006. I had some family that had been into archery, brother-in-law that got me into it. I first time out hunting with an ancient bow, compound bow.
Do you remember what model it was?
It was a Browning. I can't remember what model it was. It was old in 2006, and I literally had to hold a tight grip on it, or the bow would jump out of my hand. It was pretty crazy to think how far technology's come. But I actually got a deer that year. So, and I was shooting an old bull for the time. Anyways, it got me hooked, and I hadn't done anything but archery hunting since then, for the most part. Got my own Hoyt. It was an Ultra Tech. I think it was 2008. That bow was new. I shot the crap out of it, and I was into it. Shot that bow for about 3 years. I still have the bow, and my son is actually using it now. But life got in the way. I kind of had to take a hiatus. Went to school and so forth, and I'm just starting to get back into it the last couple of years, and yeah.
So that's pretty much the types of guys, and maybe we'll like put some other content on YouTube that kind of explains maybe a little bit more about our backgrounds with this kind of thing. But that's pretty much a basic explanation of who we are and why we're doing what we're doing. So we want to put out content that has pretty much zero bias. We are going to talk about things that we've learned about companies that put out products, and we are not sponsored, but we'll tell you what we like and what we don't like about specific gear, and that's kind of the way we like it. We like it pretty much organic. We'll use names like Hoyt, Prime, Matthews, and we'll talk about specific things that are pluses and specific things that might be minuses about each of those brands. Part of the inspiration behind this, I want to make sure that we give props to those people that came before us, as far as like YouTube people. Big props to Born and Raised Outdoors. A couple years back, they put out their Land of the Free content, and it was actually during a pretty rough time in my life. I was just getting deployed, and had to keep my mind off of certain things, and it was great to be able to get on and watch their day-by-day series. Excellent work, guys, and I love the stuff you guys are putting out now. Also, let's see, Hush is another group that comes to mind. TNP, if you want to learn some stuff about things that he uses, there's plenty of content for TNP. So those are some of the YouTube channels that have kind of inspired me to put something on the internet. So
yeah. Crispy's another one that comes to mind. There's a bunch that we watch from time to time. We don't want to leave anybody out, but
Precision Outdoors.
Yeah. Precision On Point.
On Point.
Haxon. Watch
Hunt.
Haxon Hunt. He's got tons of videos out there. So we just want to get in on sharing what we've learned and what we can do to help the average guy.
All right. So as you can see behind us, we've got Josh just got a brand new bow. And so what we plan on doing for this video, for this content, is the bow setup and what we would do. So another thing about, the content that we're putting out, the things that we've had to do, we've kind of been forced into that because of where we live. We don't live by a big pro shop where you can go in and get some work done on your bow. So we've been forced to figure out things on our own. So that's not to say that there's some local companies around that can help you find some things, and they're getting better around us, but really when it comes into the depth that it takes to be able to do your own thing, we've kind of had to do this trial and error kind of process.
And for the longest time, that's what I relied on. It was just, I had a good pro shop. I had to drive from where I lived at the time. I had to drive an hour to get to that place. So I shot that Ultratech probably out of tune 3 or 4 times, and it would have been nice to be able to tune it up myself and not have to drive that distance. And so that's kind of what he's trying to get at. We have learned a few things and put some things together that we'd like to share with the average guy. Hopefully maybe we can inspire you to do the same.
So if you've got any questions or comments about what we do and how we do it, positive if you can keep them positive, and if you've got better ideas of how we can do stuff, we're open to that too.
Exactly. So what we've got here is a Matthews Halon 32, brand new out of the box. How old is this bow? What model is it? 2018?
2017?
2017?
2018 maybe. It's a couple years old.
The point is, and this is where the average guy comes in, we go on YouTube or we go on eBay all the time, and we're looking for a good deal constantly, and we end up buying bows from a year, 2 years ago, whatever. And so we're not going to be showing you any cutting edge technology. We just want to be able to show you what the average guy might pick up off of YouTube and put together.
All right. So this is actually, if you can see in the, I don't know what you can see and what you can't see, but it looks like you can see that it's the 5-inch brace height. There's reasons why we chose this, and we might get into those now, but we'll get into the build and see what we're going to do first. So first off, what do we do when we got it out of the box, Josh? What do we want to do?
I pull it back.
So
I'm gonna pull it back.
So that's what he does. He pulls it back. We've got one of these guys. I don't know if you've seen them before. Last Chance Archery. That's one of the favorite things that we like to do, is pull them back and see if they're coming back what they say they are. You buy a 70-pound bow or a 65-pound bow or a 60-pound bow, you want to make sure that it's pulling what it says it's pulling.
This one, we could tell that it came out of the box, never set up, never shot. Doesn't have a D-loop on it, so that's where we're going to start. We're going to start getting the rest set up with a D-loop.
All right. So how do we do that?
All right, so got it right here. Actually, let me get the rest out. Get this rest. What I've got here is a Trophy Taker Smackdown, and we're going to go ahead and get this set up here. Edit.
That's fine. So, talk about some of the things that you like about the Smackdown.
Well, the Smackdown, especially this one, it's limb driven. That's the key. And a lot of guys like the cable driven, run the cable driven. That's fine. And I actually had a cable driven rest on one of my last bows, and it worked out just fine. But if you put one of these on the draw board and watch the rest with the limb driven rest, it stays up longer.
So what you're saying is that, so in a cable-driven rest, there's less portion of the arrow that it stabilizes than a limb-driven rest.
Yeah, and there's good and bad to that if you really want to get down to it. More contact time with the arrow, but it also keeps it where it's supposed to be for longer.
Okay.
So, anyways, what I'm doing here is I'm just tightening the rest down, getting it in a relatively level position. I'm just going to eyeball it here. The orientation here is what I'm looking for. I can see that we're pretty close.
Maybe just a fuzz up. If you look at the, one of the tricks that I use with the Matthews, so there's only one place, and so this is the thing with a Trophy Taker Smackdown Pro. If you line this up correctly, there's a piece of the cutout, and I don't know if it's true for the VXRs or the newer model Matthews out there, but this piece of the riser is the exact same level of the middle of the burger hole. The burger hole is that center bolt hole where you bolt it up to.
So it's easy to see when you get the rest on there that it's level. And I've never owned a Matthews. This is my first Matthews bow. Never set one of these up myself, so that looks pretty level right there.
That looks great. Looks good.
I'm gonna go ahead and turn the set screw down.
There's another level of like filming this stuff, which I wasn't really aware of. It makes you a little bit more nervous to do things. So if we look like we're fumbling around, sorry.
We'll do our best to edit the bad stuff.
Yeah, we'll take out all the other crap.
Okay, so that's on tight. What we need to do next is, let's go ahead and get the string level on here.
So I want to say that this stuff I bought from just your local Sportsman's Warehouse or Cabela's or whatever. That this is these are important things to use when you're setting up, like the D-loop position and your arrow position on the rest in relation to your burger hole. Now that the things that I've found with these Matthews bows is I like to put the arrow right through the center of the burger hole, right through the middle. And you want to make sure with these tools, it makes it fairly easy to find a level portion.
So that looks pretty close, maybe a little bit more.
So a little bit of adjustment and getting the bow level. We tried to get it level a little bit earlier. Maybe we didn't quite get it.
Not quite there.
That's pretty good.
If it'll stay there. We set up our bow shop on a budget too, so
Yeah.
some of the equipment's not your top of the line stuff, but we make do. That's the whole point. You don't have to go out and buy the most expensive stuff to be able to do this. So we've got it pretty level there. How does that look?
So the rest in relation to the burger hole looks like we could come up, but we got to slide our position down to get through the center.
Let's move that D loop down and then we'll move the rest down.
So what Josh is doing right now is actually So we're looking for a knocking point. And we want to make that knocking point so it looks like your rest could actually come down a little bit. To get that, our knocking point we want to make it level right through the center of the burger. So what we've done is leveled the bow, and what we're going to do is level the arrow in relation to that.
And hit the middle of the burger like he's been talking about. We're going to do that all kind of at the same time simultaneously.
That looks pretty good.
Is it level? Maybe a little on the low side?
Maybe a touch on the low side.
So we could just drop this down. Pretty close.
So what we're going to do now, do we have that silver? Yes, we do. So what I've got here is just a silver Sharpie. And what he's going to do is he's actually going to mark the place where his knock is with those tools that we have there. So he's going to mark his knocking point. Oh, maybe
that's a little too high.
Yeah.
Some guys like to do this just eyeballing it. But what I found when we do this, just eyeballing it, is we end up not being quite where the burger hole is. And things don't quite, I mean, you can tune it, but it just doesn't quite come out right the way we like it. We get a little bit crazy in the head about having the burger hole in center shot.
So that's the thing. One thing that you'll learn if you watch more of our content when we put it out is we're a little bit OCD about certain, well, a lot of the stuff that we do. Let's just be honest. We've got and that's kind of what plays into how we came up with the name of our stuff with the sickness. It's almost okay. If you ask my wife, we have a disease.
If you look at my bank account, I have a disease.
So yeah, we say we're on a budget, but you'll see that we've spent a little money trying different things with different things. So he's marking that knocking point with this. I've just got a silver Sharpie. I like it just because it shows he's giving himself. All right, you'll see we're a little bit different now. We kind of got a little bit at a different angle. We kind of brought it in so maybe you can see a little bit better. I don't know, we'll see.
You can see my face a lot better.
Yeah, which is a little bit more intimidating, a little bit more intimate. It's kind of, I don't know. Anyway.
So, anyways, we've got our arrow level. We've got it coming right through the burger buttonhole, and I've got a mark on my string here for a D-loop. Now, this is where we go ahead and put a D-loop on, or some guys might tie in knocking points. And we can talk about our experience with knocking points. I've had too many knocking points give me trouble with knock pinch, coming apart, just various weird things with the string and the knock. And I've tried different ways to do these, and you see a lot of the guys that on YouTube that will put they'll tie on knocking points. Some do one, some do two. I've tried both. I don't like using them. Once you get your D-loop set, in my opinion, once you have that set, it's not going to move, and it's pretty solid.
So that's one important thing about what he's saying is that setting that D-loop means really, and there's specific tools that you can buy to set D-loops with. That's kind of like a needle nose plier with little grooves in it. We just use needle nose pliers. So if those knots are set correctly, tightened correctly, and we'll show you what we do to set those knots in here when he gets it tied in. But I've had the same type of experience. Now I've got bows that are set up with a knocking point on the bottom, bows that are set up with a knocking point on the top, and like he said, bows that are set up with knocking points up and down. So the most important part about a D-loop and knocking points is making sure that they're in the correct spot and that they don't move and that they don't pinch your knock. So to each his own as far as that goes, but I'm kind of with Josh right now on this, that if your knot is set correctly, it shouldn't move. And if it does, then you need to do something different to make sure that it doesn't pinch the knock. Because that comes in to be very important, takes a huge role when you start trying to paper tune, when you try to start walk back tuning, especially to the degree that we've done it before in the past. So stuff flying all over.
Just gotta grab my pliers, my D-loop pliers.
So he's already got this started with the top knot. When you tie a D-loop, you've probably seen like other people talk about it, that you want this top knot, the crossover facing you. And whether you're a right-handed or left-handed shooter, that makes an important role. You want to make sure that, and you see how he's setting this. He's using a little bit of force, and Josh, not a little guy. He's setting that knot pretty good.
I've got this a little short, so it's going to be a little bit of a pain to get it tied in, but it's all part of the method to the madness here. I like a shorter D-loop. Some guys like long ones, and they'll recommend it, and they'll tell you that that's the way to do it. That's the only way to do it, but I'll tell you that there's a lot of different ways to do it.
So there's not one standard size D-loop. I've heard on different YouTube channels people say that it should be, well, have you ever heard like 3/4 of an inch on the D-loop or
something like that. And then I've heard you got to have it long. These guys are experienced archers, but
and we're not saying we know more than them. So if there is like a secret to the length of the D-loop,
tell us.
let us know.
Yeah.
I mean, so because we've tried different lengths, and just like Josh was just saying, if I want to maximize my draw length, then I don't really want to waste time with a long D-loop. That's just some of the stuff that we're talking about. But I found that my anchor point with a specific size D-loop is more consistent. And that's really what you want, right? Especially with archery, you want to have consistency. So you see him using those needle nose pliers. He's setting that D-loop right now. You see him spread that.
I got it to move.
Yeah, you did. There's that. There, perfect. That's another part that's important, is make sure that those strands on that D-loop knot are squoze together. That helps set that knot that much better.
I don't quite have it squoze together very good there.
It looks pretty good.
It's not going to come out. That's
all right.
The D-loop.
So there's D-loop. So we have rest. We didn't really look at center shot on the rest yet.
We can do that now.
It's a good time to do it. So one of the things that I always use, especially on a Matthews bow, and you can't do this with every bow, is you can actually use some of your accessories. You can use a good stabilizer to help you view where center shot is, because on a Matthews, that bolt-in spot for the stabilizer is usually the middle of the riser. You also want to make sure that you're paying good attention to where your cams are and your string, to make sure that that's, and you can actually measure off whether it was 3/16 is center shot usually on most bows. So
it's pretty bow specific.
That's one thing that we've learned, is that not every riser is created equally. We'll talk about it. But this is just this bow build. So he's looking at the center shot. He's looking down the string.
You want to grab that, one of those stabilizers there. I've got a bag full of accessories here. Some of this stuff I got from
eBay. This stabilizer actually got from Black Ovis, and it's one of the stabilizers that we found to be excellent. It's the crossover. This is the 1233, and it gives us a wide versatility range to be able to, if we want to extend it out to 33 inches, we can do that. If we want to keep it back to 12 inches, we can.
So that's one of the things that we'll talk about in a lot more of our content, is that versatility for us is value. So anything that you can use, and anything that you can use in different situations, hunting versus like 3D versus those types of situations, that's value to me, because I don't have to buy a different stabilizer for different things, right? So if I can get this stabilizer, the 1233 crossover, you probably ought to, like, I don't know. We're not sponsored by Crossover or Crossroads.
It's Crossroads Archery. It's a crossover stabilizer.
Exactly. So we're not sponsored by these guys, but we've found, like I said, versatility equals value. So that's the spiel. So we're just going to kind of bolt this guy up. Shoo-ba-dee-doo. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
It's not really. It's one thing that I would recommend if you do get this style of stabilizer, which you'll see here in just a second. I would run a quick disconnect with it, because of the way that the center pin of this. So just a little bit of a.
Yeah, I've got the quick disconnect here. We'll get that out later.
Running a quick disconnect, the way that the center bolt runs on these, it's a floating. It's not fixed to it, so it works better with a quick disconnect anyway. And Crossroads can tell you a little bit more about that. What we like to do by putting on this stabilizer is we like to extend it out. You can see stabilizer goes clear out past where the arrow is, and we can see if that's running true.
I've got it pretty close, I think. Don't we?
Yeah, it looks pretty good.
I might need to move it to the left just a hair. This is part of the sickness.
So it looked pretty good to me, but he thinks it's got to go to the left a little bit.
And it's gonna make me maybe not that much.
No.
It's gonna make me feel better to have it out there, and it'll probably just have to move it back when we go to tune it. So, but like I said, that's part of the sickness. I like to see things perfect.
And just being able to get, so that's the thing that we found, is doing these types of things gives us a little bit more confidence when we go out into the field. Even though we're not accomplished hunters, we're not slaying millions of animals left and right.
We're not Cameron Haynes.
We're not Cameron Haynes. Props, Cameron. Don't come punch me or something. Anyway.
Okay, I think it's good.
That's part of the OCD that we've got when what he's doing is he's just stepping back and looking down the same line as the arrow, the same line as the
string arrow to the stabilizer.
So he's kind of getting those 3 reference points in line to say that we've got center shot right here. And that's really kind of important when it comes, especially when we get to tuning these Matthews.
Let me just tighten these screws down a little bit more. Just there. You don't want to tighten them down too tight, because then they tend to stick, and you don't want to strip anything out. We'll go ahead and take the stabilizer off.
Yeah, well, don't really need that for this part. Next, what do you want to do next?
Well, I need to get a peep in there.
So we're going to take the stabilizer off. We'll put the bow in the bow press. Little disclaimer, I did spend a little money on a bow press. We said this is on a budget, but yes.
You do have to spend a little money here and there, but you can do this on a relatively cheap budget. This is where the crispy music comes in. Okay, so now that we've got a D-loop, I'll go ahead and take this out of the vise, and I have yet to draw it back with the scale, so I'll go ahead and do that. Turn that sucker on.
So that's one thing to note, that anytime you're gonna draw a bow back, you want to do it with an arrow in.
Okay.
That draw looks pretty short.
Yes, it is. We got to change those mods out before we probably do any of this. And it came in at 73.6 out of the box. Now, some people might be a little concerned about a 70-pound bow pulling 73 pounds. There's a reason that they come that way, that we figured. Sometimes the strings will stretch and settle in, and for the average guy that may not have a scale and a press to be able to readjust all those things, they want you to be able to have your 70-pound bow after it settles in a little bit. We can actually take and twist the cables a little bit and get it to go higher if we want. You might lose some forgiveness, so forth with that.
And you're definitely, aside from losing forgiveness, you're going to create a little bit more difficult pull. You're obviously pulling a heavier weight if you've tightened up your bus cables or your control cables to get a higher weight. Now, we won't recommend that, but
it's something that you can do.
Something that's out there.
Well, and that comes in along with what we did, why we decided to get into doing this stuff, is we wanted to be able to experiment, change the draw weight of your bow by twisting the cables. You can do that. It may not be manufacturer recommended.
Exactly. Matthews, don't come at us. Don't be mad.
But and you can adjust your draw length with it that way as well. So you can fine tune your draw length. Maybe your bow doesn't have the adjustability. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it goes ½ inch at a time. So those are some of the things that you gain with that.
So that brings us to another thing. I mean, this video is going to probably be a lot longer, and we'll probably edit out a bunch of crap. But talking about the difference between bows, there's some bows like a Hoyt Defiant or Hoyt RX1, Hoyt RX3, Hoyt, what are they, the Alpha series now? Axius. So they've got like, they're a little bit different in their modules as far as changing draw length, as it is with other companies. Like Bowtech has a wide range. Now with the new primes, the Prime Black series, they're able to go pretty much almost the same range as the Bowtechs are. So, and what we found is that modularity actually changes efficiency too, as far as your cams go. So with the Matthews, what you have are different modules that you can bolt in and bolt out. You don't necessarily need a bow press to change those to get the desired draw length. We might go into that a little bit more when we do comparisons on different bows that we've owned or do own now. So what Josh is doing right now, he's got a 28-inch draw length module on his bow, and he's going to switch that out to a 30-inch. I think you usually shoot what?
29 and a half. We're going to see if we can shoot 30 on this. I'm looking to set this bow up to hunt, and I want to get as much draw length out of it. I've got a 523 grain arrow here. I want to be able to get that moving as fast as I can. So one of the ways that we can do that is a longer draw length, and we'll see how it works. We've got other mods that we can put on it,
and we've got other ideas to achieve the goal that he wants. The point is there's different ways to get there, and we'll see which one works best for Josh.
Yeah. Okay. So let me take this back out of the vise to do this, right?